English Story B1, B2, Julie's Cooking. Julie has always been good at cooking. In school, she got an A star in food technology. She excelled in the kitchen and loved to experiment. Unfortunately, when she went to university, she didn't have much money, and so her diet consisted mainly of pasta, vegetables, and cheap meals. She lost her way a little bit when it came to experimenting with food. Now she's been graduated for a few years and she has her first home. She wants to make the most of her lovely new kitchen, but she doesn't know where to start. She still hasn't got used to the fact that she has more money now, so she can afford to try out new recipes. Julie decides to order some cookbooks by her favourite English chefs. She loves Nadia Hussein, Nigella Lawson, and Gordon Ramsay. When the cookbooks arrive, she spends hours reading through them and picking her favourite recipes. There's so many to choose from, she doesn't know where to start. She decides to draw inspiration from the cookbooks and make her own recipes. She mixes herbs and spices, adds in extra ingredients, and changes how they are presented. She spends hours in her kitchen, and she loves every minute of it. Just her, the food, and her radio softly playing music in the background. Her neighbours inquired about what she was cooking, as they could smell the delicious scents wafting from her kitchen into the garden. She had only just moved into her house, so it was great to finally chat with them. She invited them over for dinner, but first she checked if they had any dietary requirements or allergies. Luckily, they didn't. They arranged to come over to her house the following weekend. Julie set to work on a special 3-course dinner for her neighbours. She came up with a homemade soup with croutons, followed by a traditional English roast dinner with a spicy touch, to be finished with homemade ice cream, sorbet, and fruit. Sometimes the simplest dishes are the best. She started preparing for the dinner midweek. She went to the supermarket and bought all the ingredients she needed for the ice cream and the soup. She wanted to prepare these ahead of time, so on Saturday, all she had to do was serve them. She decided to make lentil and tomato soup for starters, with homemade croutons and sour cream. She even made some fresh bread rolls to go with it. For the ice cream, she made vanilla and strawberry flavours. She also bought some chocolate flakes and strawberry sauce for the topping. On Friday, she went back to the supermarket and got everything she needed for the main meal. She would make a chicken roast, complete with homemade stuffing. She'd serve this with mashed potatoes, roast potatoes, carrots, broccoli, and Yorkshire puddings. She loved Yorkshire puddings. Then, of course, she would make some homemade gravy. A traditional roast dinner wouldn't be complete without gravy. On Saturday morning, Julia went for a run and then cleaned her house. She wanted it to look presentable for her guests. At about 2 p.m, she started preparing the vegetables and the chicken. Then, about 2 hours before her neighbours were due to arrive, she put the chicken in the oven. An hour before they were due, she started to cook everything else. It all went swimmingly. They arrived right on time, and dinner was served 20 minutes later. Her neighbours brought her some wine and chocolates to say thank you for her hospitality. She was so glad she invited them over. She found out that one of her neighbours owns a restaurant and the other is a primary school teacher. They worked incredibly hard and very long hours. It explained why Julie has hardly ever seen them around. They invited Julie to visit their restaurant the following weekend to sample their food. Now she was a little nervous, as she was cooking for professionals, but they assured her that her 3-course dinner was one of the best they'd ever had. They told her she had a real talent for food, cooking, and flavours. She was chuffed with the feedback. Her neighbours were so impressed that they asked her what her recipes were for the soup and the homemade ice cream. "We'd love to sell this in the restaurant. It's delicious. We'll say the recipe was supplied by you, of course, and you can always eat at the restaurant for free." Julie was so pleased. Not only has she made 2 new friends in her neighbours, but she could also try the food at their popular restaurant for free. The following weekend, Julie went to the restaurant with her friend. They were served a taster menu. Everything was delicious. They only served locally sourced food that was in season. This was exactly the sort of food that Julia and her friend loved. One of her neighbours came over to their table to ask her opinion on the menu. She gave him some tips. She felt silly doing so, as he was the professional after all, not her, but he listened and took notes. "Listen, Julie," he said, "we really appreciate your feedback. You seem to have so much knowledge of food and flavours. How about you come and work here?" Julie was taken aback. She had never worked as a chef before. She had only ever cooked for her friends and family. She hadn't even entered any cooking competitions. "Oh, I don't know. I'm not a professional." Julie went home and thought about the offer. In the end, Julie and her neighbour came to an agreement. As she loved her current job and didn't want to leave, she told them she would work for them on Saturdays. She could learn the tricks of the trade and help them come up with new and exciting recipe ideas. She worked in a consultancy role. The managers at the restaurant liked having her there, as she had such a great perspective on what could and couldn't work. Julie was adventurous. She liked to try new things. Their collaboration was such a success that when they decided to open a new cafe, Julie worked with them on finalizing their recipes. She hadn't just met her new neighbours, but she had also met her new business partners. Food really can bring people together. What's your favourite recipe? Tell us in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this lovely English story. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.